There was a point where we would like even just get pills, we would just sit in and watch TV. So, get a couple of ecstasy, pop those, sit down and we just watch like Bake Off and stuff like that. My inner self is completely new and I just desperately needed it. And I did the most amazing job for such a long time telling me that I didn't. First half of my life, I grew up in a town near Oxford, and it was a very idyllic childhood. Yeah, we had like nice holidays, we used to go camping. We had motorbikes growing up. I had my own bike when I was even 15. My older brother had a bike at uni. But my dad, he had a bike accident and he was killed. And obviously that's probably like the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to like me and my family and stuff. I'm not going to say that that led to like everything that happened in my life, but it definitely had some like impacts on my mental health and stuff like that. We went on Rightmove with my mum recently and like we looked back when she sold the house, so we could see all the old photos of like my old bedroom. My wife now, she said to me, "Oh, like tell me a memory about each room." And when I saw my bedroom, all I said was I just remember like being really hurt in there. I used to like self-harm, became bulimic as well at that time. By the time I got to college, like I started like really rebelling. You know, I started getting kicked off of courses and stuff, which was kind of like unheard of, I guess, for me. When my depression would manifest, I guess if I'd been drinking a lot, which you do at uni, I got really, really drunk and I woke up in the morning and I just written on bits of paper and put them all over the room, like, "Go home, you don't belong here." The other thing that was kind of starting to evolve at this time was the amount of pornography that I was sort of looking at. In the sort of second year of uni, me and a lot of friends, we got quite into like pills. So we were going out a lot partying. There was a point where we would like even just get pills, we would just sit in and watch TV. So get a couple of ecstasy, pop those, sit down and we just watch like Bake Off and stuff like that. What should we do today? And it's like, screw it, let's just get wrecked, you know? And that was just almost like the mantra. So I sort of meandered through uni, trying to get a 2-1, definitely not trying hard enough. I got a sales job working for a pretty cool publisher. They make like Elle magazine. And it was quite a cool environment, as you could imagine, like sort of these high fashion titles. And then I got quite a good job at a magazine called Wallpaper. Got paid pretty well for that, traveling a lot, getting picked up by cars, going to really cool events. That's when I sort of started getting into cocaine. Felt harmless, it seemed like it was fun. I was going to really nice restaurants, like several times a week, like all on a company card. And it was not particularly fulfilling, which is probably unsurprising actually, but it felt like it should have been. Once I'd finished uni, the objective was to kind of get here. You know, the idea was like money and success. And although I wasn't, you know, like earning stockbroker money, I was in a scene that felt successful, but it also felt very unfulfilling. And I didn't really know what to do about that. I was trying different things, you know, like we'd go on holidays. I bought an expensive sports car. And so coming to the end of my time at Wallpaper, I was like, I'm going to go traveling. So I packed my job in and then I sort of went around the world because that's going to be fulfilling, isn't it? To like see the world. And it was fun, which is totally different. So I ended up taking a job with a charity. I worked for a global children's development charity. I'll help these kids and that will fulfill me. Just didn't even know why I was doing anything, almost. Like, I'm doing it because, you know, it's important to do nice things or something. The pornography thing that had sort of like started at university was becoming like an everyday thing. It wasn't like just sexual gratification. That it wasn't like that at all. It was like I was addicted to like the endorphins of just a screen of just content, not even watching all of these videos. And at that time, my older brother, he was into similar stuff, I guess you could say, like, you know, going out, whatever. He'd given his life to God. He'd become a Christian. And I remember seeing like this real change in him. He seemed to have it all together or something. At that time, I'd started like experimenting with like psychedelics. I started taking like magic mushrooms. And I just remember I was having some like deep thoughts about like the world, and like really starting to like just question everything, I guess, and becoming quite sort of conscious of like my non-physical self. I wrote this poem, and I wrote down, "You're not a body with a soul. You're a soul with a body. Without the body, you're still whole." And it was that realization that I was like this, I had this inner thing, and I was like conscious of it, aware of it, and it wasn't actually that good. The porn thing was really dirtying the inner self. It wasn't good that I was taking these drugs all the time. And for the first time, all of that stuff that I guess I'd justified, felt like it was okay, harmless, suddenly started feeling a bit different to me. And after that, I just started praying. I chose to pray because I couldn't stop and I didn't know what else to do. And I knew that my brother had, like, I can't even explain it, like how different he was after this, after becoming a Christian, basically. Like he was such a influence on me realizing that change can happen. I wouldn't say that I was like, oh, I believe all the words in the Bible or anything like that, but I was always felt like that there was a higher power, that there was a God, that this can't all be just from nothing. Let's just ask some questions, God, can you help me with this? Next day, absolutely nothing. Same problem continues. One day I was sort of like praying. I felt like it was heard. I couldn't even explain it. It's almost like talking down a phone and no one's there, and then like a receiver has been lifted and you can hear that tone change or something, but it was like inside. And I was like, you're real. And I sensed it, and I started to like beg in like from my inner heart, not like verbally, but just like begging, crying out. I was like, I need to change. And I felt like this thing got picked up. And I woke up the next day, I just prayed again. I was like, right, I know you heard me. I know that this is happening. Today, I'm starting anew. Like, just help me, come with me. I'm following you. Not even knowing what that meant, I stopped watching porn. For the first time ever, I like had a day, or in a really long time, I had a day where I didn't look at porn. I kept smoking weed because I was sort of like, that's not that bad. I've got to stop doing class A's, but like the weed thing's not that bad. And the porn just stopped. I had a Bible at home because I'd been in and out of a few churches. And while I was doing that praying, I'd popped into some, they were giving out Bibles and whatever. So I just started reading the Bible. It was in like a magazine format, just underlining stuff. And it started to help me understand a bit more about what was right and wrong, not justified by me exactly, but like giving me a bit of a script to follow, I guess you could say. And I had this like really profound daydream. I wouldn't say it was like some like vision from God. It was more like a daydream. And I had this image of me walking up to heaven. And then on the way, I had to go past everyone who'd been affected by my drug use. It was like a mum whose son had been forced into start selling weed and then ended up doing county lines, and their family and like all the impact on it. And I just had to stay there and I had to just watch it, like all of it. I had to watch the mum like crying and arguing with the husband about like why their son isn't doing this, and like it was horrible. And it was like one person, and I looked and the line was massive. The line was so long of all of the stuff that was harmless in my life. There was like all these people affected by like porn trafficking. And I just saw this line and I was like, this is like a bit of a Christian word. I was convicted. I was like, I felt horrible. I felt so guilty. Starting to understand what the Bible talks about forgiveness, and feeling like I'm a good person. I've lived a pretty impactful life. And then realizing that actually like everything you do is like the butterfly effect, isn't it? Except for it's much more than the butterfly. So at that time, yeah, I joined an Alpha course, which is like an intro to Christianity thing, learning about why Jesus would die on a cross, why that was needed, why I needed it, why everyone needs it. And I got baptized. And just since that moment, my life trajectory has been completely different. I've ended up qualifying as a maths teacher in the school I work at. I've just been promoted. I'm now the deputy head of the school. I'm married. You know, being a Christian doesn't like fix things. It's like a perfectly painted thing, and it was like I would see the dirt on it now, and I knew every time I saw it, I was like, I've got to clean this again. Like this isn't right. I know what it is to be washed and to be new. It's just completely different. That's just how I live my life now. Totally imperfectly, with a totally different purpose, you know, not about thinking about what's harmless, but realizing that so much of everything that we do is harmful. Giving those problems, going to God with them, going to Jesus, going to the cross with them, has just completely changed my life in literally every single aspect. I just feel differently about everything. I feel differently about everyone. And I feel differently about myself. That term being born again is quite a literal thing. My inner self is completely new. And I just desperately needed it. And I did the most amazing job for such a long time of telling me that I didn't. Of just okaying myself, thumbs up in myself. You know, that line of people having to walk through to get up to heaven, that's what Jesus is about, because there is nothing that I can do to fix any of that stuff that's happened. If God is like love, that's what the Bible says, and if God is like perfect and just good, and I am represented by this line, that is at such a big gap. I'm like, how am I going to get into this place? And what Jesus' life represents and what the cross represents is the bridge between me, everything that I've done wrong and continue to do wrong, and the presence of God. And what Jesus represents is the nature of God seen in the life of Jesus, to take the penalty that is deserved for everything that I've ever done wrong. And what I deserve is, it's almost like an atheistic view. I really deserve to just die like dust and just never be near that sort of God. That's the reality of it. Like, I don't deserve to be around someone perfect because I'm so imperfect. And what Jesus does is he comes as the perfect person and lives this life that, you know, the New Testament talks about, and talks about what it is to be actually good, you know. In this world, it's hard not to think and feel certain things. And it just highlights this big difference between me and God and Jesus. And the cost for that is death and dust and never being with the Father. And what Jesus says is that I love you, and that despite all of that, I love you. And I understand that this world is going to be near impossible, is impossible to be perfect, because we're always going to lust, we're always going to get angry, we can't help it, it's human. And he says, but I will meet you exactly there. I will come right down into your world. I will live that life. I will take the penalty of death. And as long as you just come with me, that line, you will just go straight past it. And you will just be able to be in the presence. And when I die, I'm not going to just be dust in the ground. And that inner self is not just going to stop. That inner self is going to be arriving at that gate, perfect in the eyes of God because of Jesus and because of his life and because of his death, I will be resurrected.